Well, she said this morning in our meeting, it's boring.
It is boring.
That's the tagline.
This
How do you
feels
like that?
like
Is that going to go over?
this feels like Groundhog Day. But boring isn't bad. That stability is what buyers have been looking for a long time. So we have lots of opportunities for people to purchase. Interest rates aren't changing. People can figure out exactly where they're going to stand in the market and make a move. And we're just waiting for the moves to happen.
We're seeing a little bit of uptick in the sales, but we're being bombarded with listings that really offset it, really, in terms of what the list of sales ratios are and so on and so forth. I mean, that's what's happening. I don't know why, but everybody and his uncle is putting their houses up for sale.
Yeah. There hasn't really been any movement. So even with interest rates, they're stabilized. They're not going up and they're not going down. So after so many cuts, it's a good thing.
Buyers had two reasons to hesitate. Tariffs, I'm afraid what that brings. And also interest rates were moving down. You said continuous cuts. So let's just see if we get another cut. And that makes it even more affordable for me. Well, guess what? There's no cut now. So now maybe buyers will settle into the fact that this is where it's going to be for a length of time and move along and do it.
In May, 1,300 listings hit the market, and unfortunately, only 491 of them sold. So when we have that much inventory hitting the market, obviously buyers have a lot of choice, but there are a lot of disappointed sellers where their homes aren't necessarily moving. At the end of the month, we landed with just under 1,800 active listings in Windsor-Essex, which proves that, unfortunately, if you aren't priced right, you will not be moving off of the market anytime soon.
And the sad thing about it, and we're learning a lot more about, a lot of them are still having high expectations of what their house is going to sell at. I don't know if they're trying to jump on board because of that, but it's not happening, quite frankly. And they're not getting the message. A lot of people aren't getting the message, and that's happening in Toronto too. They're still not getting the message that you can't get those numbers for your house. What we're seeing is that there's an awful lot of listings that are being removed and then restarted again. They're rejig and they try to sell the house. A lot of these houses are sitting there, and that's why we have so many active listings. We have a 4-month supply of listings, and we usually don't run at that level. You're running 2 to 3 months at the most, and so we're seeing a lot more a supply in the market. All that means is that when you're in a neighborhood and I'm selling my house, I've got to look at my competition. How many houses are competing with me as well? That was never the case, a year ago. You weren't looking at how many houses were in the market because it would be me and maybe another person, but not today. You could be up to 3 and 4 and 5 houses.
The cancel and relist, it doesn't always work. What does work is listening to the advice of your realtor and the pricing that they put in front of you. That's based on data, statistics. They are putting the work in to make sure that the house that you are listing is appropriately listed, and they're not trying to take advantage of you. So listen to what they're bringing to the table, and let's try to be successful the first time.
But the problem is that you can't change. You cannot go back to abnormal and compare. It doesn't work. Abnormal was abnormal. Wipe it clean. You can't look back at it and compare it to a regular market. We're back into those regular markets, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
2019, obviously, we saw a large spike in sales, not listings, but sales, and houses were flying off the market quicker than we could even put the sign in the ground. But that was, and I hate the word so much, but unprecedented times. That will never happen in our lifetime, unfortunately, because that was something that no one could have anticipated. So those price gains are not something that we need to use as a reference point. We need to be looking back prior to COVID times, and the gradual gains that our real estate market made are more predictable and more stable, which is what we're seeing today. So despite the boring nature of our market reports in the sense that things aren't going wildly up, they are at least predictable and stable. And that's actually a good thing for our market overall.
And yes, whether you want to call that boring or not, it's good. It's a good situation because people can take they can take some satisfaction that they're not overpaying and the sellers are getting a reasonable price and so on and so forth. I think that's where we want to be anyways.
Real estate's supposed to be a safe investment. And so making these moves needs to be calculated. And that's why you need to use the advice of a realtor and do research yourself as well, so that we are making smart moves in today's market and not getting more than what we bargained for.
I mean, and also in the pandemic, what did we see? We saw people buying everything. Not just, it wasn't a home for me to live in anymore. It was for me to have a bunch of rentals, to buy rentals, to do Airbnbs, to do income properties, all these type of things. People were jumping into those markets like it was no tomorrow. Where is that market today? It's almost gone, right? It's really has diminished. And that's unfortunately what's happened over the time. Obviously, those who have rentals are fine, but people who had bought Airbnbs and everything else, they're suffering. Those things, they're not making the kind of money it used to be. And I think we kind of got into that idea that houses were like a commodity. We certainly have that with, for sure, for the apartment users or condo users. They started seeing that as a commodity, and that's basically what it isn't really. We need a housing market that houses folks, and that's we're getting back more to that process.
Yeah, there's still lots of opportunities for investors out there. There are restrictions on Airbnbs and in certain areas in Windsor-Essex, which do limit your opportunities in that sector, but obviously there are still multifamilies. There are still ways to make money and save money in terms of investment in Windsor-Essex. And we don't want to steer anyone away from that, as there are lots of opportunities to make good money, but it just needs to be with the proper knowledge in our area as to what is going to work and what is not going to work.
And we saw a slight increase in condominium sales in this last month. Certainly not at the level as we compare to a year ago, but the condominiums actually, there was an uptick. That's not the same condo market that you see in Toronto that you hear so much about. That's obviously where it's completely fallen apart. We're not in that situation. We're far from Toronto with respect to any of that type of thing. But that's what we hear in the media an awful lot more than anything else. And people tend to believe it, and that's not the case. That goes with all buyers too. When they're hearing about other markets, they tend to think that this is the market here, and that's not the market here. You've got to really pay attention to what really is the current market here, and hence what we're trying to tell people is that's not what we're facing. That's not the reality of this community here.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. And if you're interested at all in getting more detailed stats than what we discussed today, we have everything available on our website in detail. And one of our realtors would be happy to discuss any of those items with you. So we'll see you next month.